about me, and like I was like, gives a shit, man. they don't give a fuck. They're just looking for like what's in it for me.
For sure.
Yeah, that's it. That's not. Let's wait a bit so some people can start joining the live stream. It's like a 1 minute. It's enough, and then we can just start because this is gonna be recorded, so people can watch it later.
Yeah.
Let's see. The fuck? I was just like feeling like how does it feel like to be in silence, like with the live stream and just kind of embracing the silence.
Oh, the side. Yeah. Yeah, I've done a few podcasts before, and I've never done one I've never had it set up like this before.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really too
How was it for you?
Doing podcasts before?
Yeah.
It was good. It felt very like there's a bit of a free flow for it, but at the same time I feel like you kind of have to stick into the confines of not just the topic, but depending on who you're doing the podcast with, they'll have their audience will be a certain type of person. So it's like you have to think the way that I speak now, will the audience understand everything I'm saying? Will they get the message in the way I'm trying to say it? Do I have to tailor it for the audience and the platform? It's very different compared to
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, there is to have some. I guess we can just start. So yeah, welcome guys. This is gonna be like a series for me. I'm gonna interview a lot of coaches, and I guess this is my first interview here. I have Gabriel, right? You're from Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. No.
Fuck, man. I just broke my heart. Like, fuck. I just fucked it up.
Nah, that's cool.
From where?
So, well, I'm from New York, but I'm Puerto Rican.
Fuck, man. Puerto Rico, not Costa Rica.
Are we still recording?
Yeah, we are. This is fucking funny.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's a perfect start. So maybe share with us a little bit about yourself, your journey. I guess you were born in the US.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So okay, just share a little bit about your journey and what you're up to.
Sure. My name is Gabriel Aracuente. I was born and raised in New York, in the US, of course. And background is Puerto Rican. In the city where I was from, the Bronx. For whoever is from the city or whoever is from New York, you'll know that there's a massive Hispanic population down there. And so I lived there for a good portion, of my life, a good portion of my childhood. Then we moved up to the Hudson Valley. So my journey started, I'd like to say my journey started when I was a teenager with a number of strange experiences that some paranormal and supernatural. And that led me on to the idea that there's more to reality than what meets the eye. And so I embarked on my own personal development journey while I was in middle school throughout high school. And that involved understanding different aspects of what people today call spirituality. I learned different types of meditations, how to induce REM sleep, lucid dreaming, all this stuff. And while I'm doing this in high school and not talking about it because I'm thinking I'm the only weirdo who gets it, I realized that this process that I'm going through, it really helped me understand myself deeper and also helped me understand people on a much deeper level as well.
What got you into be curious about like that? Because that's very interesting. I feel like a lot of people, let me know if my voice is kind of loud or too loud. It's fine.
There you go.
Yeah, so a lot of people, they kind of never question anything. They just assume like this is it, like uh, whatever place, whatever conditioning, whatever beliefs I got from when I was growing up, I just assumed that's reality and just keeps living life with never really questioning. So I'm curious to know like what was the situation or events or whatever was within you that made you question those things. Yeah.
Yeah. So since my first memory, which was about the age of 3 years old, I started to realize that there were things that I was seeing in real, like in my everyday life, that other people weren't seeing. And I don't mean like seeing the a guy harassing someone else in the corner or something. I mean, I would see things that weren't physically there. Like some people today call those spirits and entities and all that stuff. And I would see like gargoyles at night in like my room. And
Gargoyles, what is that?
so you know those statues, those little, well, some of them are really big statues of the animal looking thing that they're like at churches and they have like wings.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
I see.
and I would see
Like
them.
Notre Dame, kind of those creatures coming out of Notre Dame, right?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
so
see.
I would see these things and I was seeing them all throughout my childhood. And I would,
Where, like randomly, like in places, in corners and shit? Like,
yeah, so it was mostly when it was mostly at night. It was mostly in private quarters, so that was either my room or someone else's room. Occasionally I would see it out in public, and not just gargoyles. I would see just people who weren't physically there, or at least like it's like having my mom next to me and I'm looking over at the street corner and there's a person there. And I see the person's there and they see me, but no one else sees that person. It's like a situations like that. And I went through a number of different situations like that. And so I grew up with seeing weird things in video games. And oh yeah, and like Japanese anime. And whoever was, all the millennials out there probably have heard of Dragon Ball Z. And I grew up with that stuff, and then I grew up with the idea of going to martial arts school and all that stuff from my father's best friend at the time, and I hated it. I hated it so much. I just hated being forced to do things that I didn't want to do, which I feel like a lot of people are hitting that point today. But being exposed to those things and seeing Dragon Ball Z and seeing this monkey man flying in the air and shooting energy balls, I'm like, people ask me, they're like, "What'd you want to be when you grew up?" And I'm like, "I don't want to be an astronaut. I don't want to be a cop like my dad, a teacher like my mom. I want to be something that's beyond human. I want to do what he's doing." And like, no one gets that. They're like, "What the hell is that?" Like, that's fantasy. That's all made up. But I'm seeing things while I was born and raised in a Catholic household as well, so I kept my mouth shut because you don't talk about those things about like seeing supernatural things, and so I did. But
if you would meet Jesus, maybe you would like tell, I met Jesus today. I saw.
if I ever had, oh man, but that's the level of pressure that I dealt with as a kid. I just couldn't. I didn't know how a better way to like explain these things to people, so I just didn't. And then
Hmm.
it
So,
wasn't
so you
until
never tried. You never even tried to explain.
I did with my mom one time, and she kind of blew it off.
Yeah,
She
yeah. I
didn't know
see.
how to really take it. And then
So what was these things that motivated you later on in life to like wanting to build your own thing, or
um yes, so make like a 30 make forward, but eventually I told my brother, and he happened to have his own experience as well. So then slowly I started to open up to people about these things I was going through. And then when I was in my mid 20s, I was told to get a social media account on Facebook. And then I was just like, through my martial arts instructor. And then eventually I did. And then I realized there were more people out there who were involved in what we call spirituality today. And then while seeing all these people, I noticed some of them had their own businesses with it. And so I'm like, I would like to do that because I know I have gifts as well. I've been using them all my life. I just never knew you can make money off of doing that. And that's when I started to realize what being an entrepreneur could look like. And so I embarked on that journey for a few years, and it quickly evolved into in a thing of its own because I realized You can do readings all day for people, but that's not where the real value comes in. Using what's being taught is the real value.
I think yeah, that's a big distinction. Is a lot of people are like knowledge collectors,
Yes,
right?
exactly. And you can't like a lot of people love that. They just want to learn, and then it's like you're collecting and they're just chilling on the shelf there and you're just collecting dust. That's all it is.
Yeah, because like that was I was speaking with a friend just now like about this. This is like massive because let's say my friend when we went on a retreat meditation and he became so much more aware about his own bullshit, about his own patterns and his own its mind's bullshit basically. And at the time he thought like, oh, now I became aware of it. Now everything changed.
Yeah.
But even then, that was just the first step. Becoming aware of what's real. Because people, if most people live so in such a deep denial that they don't even give them this chance to change because they're not accepting what's their starting point. What's their starting point, right? And so when he came back, he realized that all that awareness was useless because the patterns were still there, the beliefs were still there and in the unconscious mind. So it didn't matter. It didn't matter at all if you knew all these things intellectually. And I think a lot of people get lost in that because it's like it's the rod that makes them feel like they're growing, but at the same time it's not uncomfortable. So it's like this is like the favorite favorite thing that a lot of people do. They are into self-help and dating and whatever is like getting all this information. I meet guys that like watch videos about dating and meeting women for like years and they never did a single approach. And they think like, okay, once I learn all these things, then I'll be ready. But then they took all those years learning all those things intellectually, but then when they finally go and do the first approach of their life, they realize they just wasted all that time because they learned so much more by just going up and just putting themselves out there like one time than reading like 100 books, you know. And it's a huge trap because it's like you can tell yourself that you are getting better, but are you really getting better? Like, is your life any different? It was a year ago by all the books you read, just because of the books you read. Is that any different? Like, is your habits different? Is the way you see yourself different? Unconscious, like in your subconscious mind, that's what I'm speaking about. Is there anything changed about your beliefs and your life, your day to day? Like, most people, the answer is no, not really.
Exactly.
You know. So maybe we can get into that. The topic of this call would be like talking about, I think, having an holistic approach to life and dating, and not forgetting the big picture. And I think that's one of the most important things is having like always the big picture in mind. So maybe you can speak a little bit about what you do and how that applies to like a more balanced life in all aspects.
For sure. So, what I do would you like me to quickly highlight what I do from a professional standpoint, or just kind of like what I do from a personal development standpoint for myself?
Yeah, like what? Yeah, I guess. Yeah, what do you think would be more important to share? Like more relevant?
Okay. So, I think the biggest thing that I believe anyone who's getting involved in personal development and meditation and self discovery and all these things is we have, and this is just my personal opinion, we should be demystifying what's being defined as spirituality and esoteric and secret and sacred and all this stuff. And not to say to take the what's sacred out of it. It's to it's to stop trying to think that you have to know it all before you can take action. So many people are trying to get ready, and then they can never stop getting to get ready. And this is in today's world because there's just such a massive data dump on the internet and all these books and all these workshops and all these different packages that these people have to sell. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's great value in having knowledge. But thousands of years ago, people didn't have that. If they came across a wise man, that was like working with that person. And some people avoid that today because they think that everyone's a guru. And everyone, unfortunately, is becoming a guru and they're not becoming the one who just does things. So the first thing that I believe everyone should be doing and focusing on when it comes to the very basics, if they're on the beginning of their journey, is acute self-awareness. And this means watching your thoughts, seeing what triggers your thoughts, learning how to silence the mind effectively, and then being able to do this not just on your own when you're practicing, but when in real life. Because you can spend years and years and years and years and years reading, for example, in this case from before, for dating. And if you never go out and speak to a chick, then what are you really doing? Are you just becoming a copy machine that you could just spew information that you've been reading, or are you actually coming as someone from experience? And for my case, when it came to dating who I'm dating now, that was all experience. And that was all just a very organic process of growing. And so I think a lot of people, they want what's they think is like mystical, but they just have to take the mystical shell off and realize how, like, all those things that should be in us naturally. It should be natural for us to see how meditation can be beneficial, but how you apply it in a real life situation that's dangerous, such as being thrown into the middle of the sea or being swept into the sea. And then instead of panicking, remembering how meditation kicks in when you're on your own, and then remembering that memory, remembering how it felt, that state of being where you were just clear, remembering how it feels to feel the water as you're clear, and being able to move with it so you're not getting sucked in from the riptide and it throws you back on shore. And by the way, that actually happened to me. That was a few years ago.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing is that most people, they wanted to still feel like they're improving, but at the same time they don't want to put themselves under pressure or under uncomfortable situations,
Yeah.
right? But like real growth comes from exposing yourself in uncomfortable situations and learning how to deal with whatever comes up, whatever emotions and whatever uh, responses within you happen. And I think that's a big, like, nowadays I feel like the self-help and all this is just a big escape for a lot of people. Is the new Netflix, it's like a big way of them to absorb so much things, but they are using those things, like, let's say, like the positivity and all that, to create like a wall of denial about where they actually are at, so that they don't have to face that their ego is been telling them all kinds of lies, that so that they can have like a sense of feeling good about their self-image or feeling good about who they are right now. So there is this internal mechanism within people, which is that stops them to kind of see the truth of where they are, so that they don't feel bad. So it's like a coping way of not feeling bad, because once you realize that you're not as good as you thought, that hurts. And people are trying to avoid to feel that hurt. But if you don't get to the point where you actually face the brutal reality and feel the hurt, you can never really change it, like transform yourself or change whatever your life is, because you are like, you have all these things, all these beliefs you are completely unaware of, and you're just running, and then you just feel like you're improving, but there is like this sense of you there's up and down, but it's on horizontal. So you go up and then you get to like the ceiling, or whatever ceiling you have in that area of your life. And once you get to the ceiling or a little bit above the ceiling, there is automatic self-sabotage that brings you back to your box, to your, there's a bottom of success and like a ceiling of success. And those people walk up and down in between these two lines, and there is a feeling of they're doing something. There's a feeling of I'm growing, I'm better. But But actually, if you look just at that of those patterns, if you really look deeply, nothing really changed on you. That was, and that's hard to for people to take, because people usually, when you buy into these lies and you tell yourself, the longer you tell yourself those lies, the harder it is for you to accept that those are lies.
For sure. And unfortunately, I've seen. And I'm saying unfortunately, that's a process for everyone. But I say unfortunately because, like you, I've seen a lot, and it's a lot of the popular word today is spiritual bypassing, where they take all the light and fluff and they shove down everything that's dark. And um, if I can demystify what that looks like for the average person, it's literally taking what seems very pretty and that being the shield, so people don't have to look at what's really going
It's
on.
basically like a way to keep hating yourself, but telling yourself that you feel good,
Exactly. And
basically.
it's yeah, and it's that's denial, unfortunately. And of course, it takes time for everyone to get through that. But I believe if people approach spirituality from that sense, then they're not going to get growth. They're going to get um, well, they're going to be lying on themselves. And then when the situation pops up where everything they had to have learned shows up, they don't perform. They're not able
Yeah.
to handle the situation.
Yeah. So what's your perspective on, like, because actually I'm curious to know, because I have as well a interesting perspective on that. But like having a holistic lifestyle where you bring different areas of your life and you try to, like, let's say, use each other to benefit each other and create like a synergy in your different areas of your life. Like, how do you see that applying, let's say, to dating in this case that we are in my group? Like, how do you see that someone can bring that holistic approach to their dating life?
Okay. So is it okay if I use the topic of dating for an
Mhm.
example? Okay.
Yeah.
So this one might be very challenging for men in this specific case to actually go through because sometimes it's not the most pleasant thing to hear that the way that the things that you've been raised to believe, the practices, what it means to be a man, the way you should be dressing, the music you should be listening to, the activities you should be doing, all these things, that's what it means to be a man. And then you apply that into real life when it comes to dealing with a woman. And then you realize there's a division. And very rarely do you find these two sexes working together in a way where they're growing together. It's more like this quite often. So holistically, how that looks when you apply, well, how can I connect with a woman more effectively, whether it's for dating or for looking for the right partner? It comes back to the self-awareness that I was referring to. Because if we notice that certain not so pleasant things kick in within us, then we start to see what is responsible for cause and effect in our lives. And sometimes the effect is always seen, but we're never looking at the cause. So we're trying to shut down the effect without addressing the cause. So how would I'm trying to think of an example in real life. So if I'm practicing mindfulness, that would be the first step in understanding myself. And if I understand myself and I get very raw and real and I don't lie to myself about why I feel the way that I feel when it comes to jealousy or why I feel the way I feel when I see a woman that's doing better than me in my life because she's making more money. If I could get real with myself as to why that's showing up in my life and I see that it actually ties to a deeper wound, then I can start to heal that. And heal, I mean, go through the process of if it's jealousy, realizing where that came from. And I personally have had to overcome that jealousy in my own past. And thankfully that's flourished in my life and where I'm able to like still meet and like make friends with women while still being in a long distance. I mean, a long distance, a long term relationship. That's so when you have a bunch of men who are able to do that, and it's not easy because jealousy is a part of a men's culture nowadays. But once you're able to overcome that with 1 to 2 numbers, you keep your numbers small as a culture in a community. And then you start to grow inwardly once the foundation is strong. Because if it's a shaky foundation, then you're going to have all these men who want to overcome jealousy, but there's no group effort, there's no support. It's all a synergistic feeding of everyone's insecurities. And not to say that that's a bad thing on them, it's just to say that we need a foundation to work on where everyone's growing together.
I think that's a good foundation is a good topic because you were referring to healing, like healing your wherever your traumas and all that. But I've met a lot of guys, and I think this is the general population of men, to be honest, which is they find very hard to feel anything. They're too stuck in their head, and they only if it's something very intense like triggering that happens in a moment, but they don't really feel like they cannot make themselves right now feel whatever they want to feel, because there is so many layers of repression, so many layers of like shame and guilt, and like so many emotions like on top of each other that these men can't really open up emotionally. And I think that's where it comes the foundation, because usually that doesn't happen because a guy that has been living his life until his 20s with a certain beliefs, these beliefs have become so crystallized, became so rigid inside of them, that there is like no space to heal that, because it's like ice, it's like ice. So the way that I personally, in my experience, I did was that at some point, if a guy is so down there in terms of their ability to deal with themselves or their emotions and all that, there is the practice of more exposing externally, exposing themselves to make those blocks come up, using like external. In this case, like I really benefited to approach women, because that really brought a lot of things about shame of sexuality and fear of rejection. So many things come up, and then using that, you can, at least the way I see it is, you have been crystallizing a certain beliefs that are negative about yourself, and then you have to at least at first, when you are initiating, in this case approaching women, but it can be any other area that you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, you gotta like take in consideration that the way that your beliefs has been crystallized until this point has a lot of momentum, based on the amount of years that you have been believing and living by those beliefs. And so there is a period where, in my perspective, you shouldn't be really focused on being too much holistic, but being like laser focused on that one thing to get you out of that, to bring you again back to the center. So if you've been too unbalanced towards a certain lack beliefs and negative definitions of yourself, then you can like using more of exposure to kind of, with a lot of momentum, this relies a lot of momentum, you bring yourself back, being the pendulum back to like more of balance. And then when you are in that position, then it's much more easier to access your emotions and start much more like a much more efficient healing process. But I think that a lot of people that are in their head, they try to go from there in their head to meditation, or to sitting down and trying to like let go of these beliefs, but they're so crystallized that even if you sit down, nothing will happen. Because if you go, like, let's say a guy thinks he's not good enough to a woman or whatever, it's not because you're gonna sit down, if you don't have experience and you didn't expose yourself, that now that you meditating, you go out there, you're still gonna get triggered, you're still gonna get that belief to come up, because it's still there crystallized and you're not aware of it. So you have to have some level of awareness of what kind of beliefs you have. Because if you're just stuck and you're trying to use meditation as escaping, to not take action, to not put yourself in uncomfortable situations, you're just delaying it's needed. it's needed to go through, but people are trying to avoid that. That's what I feel.
Yep, that's perfectly said. That's exactly what people are trying to do. They're trying to meditate their problems away. And so something I've had this conversation with many people throughout the years, and a lot of them understand it too. And it's not easy. It's not easy, especially if someone's just starting off, because for the viewer, I want to say that whenever you're doing something and you know it's getting out of your comfort zone, it's not that it's hard, it's new. If it's not as new anymore, then the discomfort level starts to drop. And the more you practice it, the higher your confidence starts to grow. So when men have a challenge with confidence, it's, from my personal perspective, it isn't that they just suck, it's just that they don't have experience. And confidence is the result of having experience in a specific area. And so, like you had mentioned, it's not just you can't just meditate the problem away. Meditation should become a tool that helps you with addressing the problem or facing the situation that you know you're going to have to get into. In many cases, which is another huge thing you mentioned, was that most men are so emotionally shut down and emotionally cut off, and they've been told that expressing emotion is weak. If you feel jealous, that's for pussies. Like you shouldn't be feeling that way. And if you start crying, that's also a sign of weakness. So it's like all these things. It's almost like it's so not good to experience emotion. And then once you do, finally, in the worst case situations, which I've seen men go through this in my life, they experience an extreme burst of anger. And then that destroys relationships, that destroys their potential careers in whatever fashion it shows up. And so
I think that when guys do repress over and over again, they feel like, okay, I'm getting rid of this so I don't have to deal with it. But then you're not getting rid of it. You're just like, shoving it under the rug. But it's always gonna pop out somehow, because everything that appears has to go somewhere. It doesn't disappear. So if you have all those things repressed, eventually that's why a lot of my clients as well in the past, like they always had these moments that maybe even the situation didn't require all that explosion, but they there was something like that creates like this pain body where there's just like something pops up and then you just explode completely, and then you just get this full rage mode, and you don't know like where did that, like later afterwards you just feel like you were possessed by this demon or something, but you don't even know where the fuck was that, like later you just don't even recognize yourself in that fucking thing that happened, like the way that you responded. But yeah, a lot of guys there is a lot of shame because we've been, like you said, been conditioned to not be honest about how we feel. We kind of like deny to other people, and then eventually we just tell it so many times that we deny it ourselves as well. So you don't even have any contact with those things. I have clients that magic mushrooms, very powerful doses. I have a client that would take that powerful dose and nothing would happen to him. Like that's how much like layers of blocks of like that their ego created, that they couldn't experience. Like he couldn't open his perceptions. He couldn't experience anything because it was so. Yeah, it's tough because like people, like a lot of guys come from this. I think you said the religious background, religious families with hierarchies, and like the dad that is the provider and all these roles, and then the children just get fucking traumatized because there is such a heaviness around those families because they're all like playing this front and all they're hiding everything they feel and they're just playing to that, and then that's how their fucking man grows up and then doesn't know. And then clients, I know that because they repress so much their sexuality, then they end up going in extreme other directions, going like to prostitution or like start getting addicted with prostitutes and stuff like that, or just a lot of other men maybe even go like to rape and like stuff like that because of it just comes whenever you repress something, it just comes in much darker ways. in much extreme and darker ways in other forms. So I think, yeah, it's hard, you know, like it's hard for a lot of people to now like start being honest with themselves, because the moment you're honest, fully honest with yourself, you cannot accept the way you're doing things. So you kind of know that if you were very honest with yourself, then you would feel forced to do things that you're scared of. So you prefer to just be like, oh no, that's not true or whatever, just hide it, you know.
Yeah, for sure. So I think for a lot of men who are dealing with problems like this, especially throughout like hundreds of years, because I feel like even right now, our generation, I feel like that's not even where it started. I think this is something that goes way back, but I'm noticing that men's groups are coming together, and a lot of them are coming together in a way where they're allowing men to be able to get raw and real with their emotions, and as some people say, holding space so guys can do this, whether it's through crying or talking about things that make them feel extreme shame. And shame's a real thing, even if it's a small dose or an entire household full of shame. All of us have it in varying degrees. But I believe once we have a community like that, it can really change so much for us. But if, let's say, we're a guy who we're not ready to come out to a community because we have the idea that this is my shit, I have to take care of my own shit, and no one else is going to do that for me. And yeah, that's true, but there's value in numbers and there's strength in numbers. So I do want to say this just as like a tip for anyone who's watching, and maybe they're one of those guys that they're like, I don't want to go to a men's group yet, or I don't feel comfortable. One of the things you can really do is to start journaling, finding an outlet to be able to express the way that you feel, maybe even if it's not in the rawest sense. So for me, when I was growing up and I was in like middle school and high school, my sense of journaling was actually through my dreams. And I had some of these crazy dreams. And so one of the exercises I would do, because it was for like astral projection, was record my dreams. And I continue to do that for years. I still have books filled with dreams, and I would remember anywhere between like one dream to like 8 dreams in one night. And the more I did it, they would come back in more and more vivid like detail. And what I realized by doing that process, a lot of the stuff that I was holding on to was showing up in the dream. And then somehow it became more comfortable to see those things, even though they were dark. And I came to learn years later through studying Carl Jung's work and psychotherapy and psychoanalytical psychotherapies and all these other things, that I was actually understanding my unconscious mind through my dream work. And because I became so comfortable with communicating with those dark parts of myself in my dreams, it was showing up in real life in the way that I spoke to people. And so for some people who have like reoccurring dreams over and over and over, it's because there's something that's showing up in your unconscious mind, like some sort of content that wants to be seen. When it's seen, then you can work through it. Once you work through it, then you achieve levels of growth. And so
yeah I think that when people think about beliefs or negative definitions they have about themselves, maybe they even are afraid of looking at those. They're in their unconscious or subconscious. But people think like, oh, okay, so what do I do when I find out about this belief that I have? How do I handle that? And I think that a lot of people they believe somehow that if they like resist whatever belief they have, that it will go away. So they want to like forcefully remove the belief they have. And I was explaining this to my friend because a lot of people don't understand that whatever you resist, it persists. So if you you have a certain belief and you don't want to believe in that, you don't want to have that belief, hold on to that belief. But resistance, when you resist your belief, it's a subtle way to still hold on to that belief, because you're making it more real. You're giving it importance.
Yeah.
So the way to really surrender any belief that you identify and become aware of is to really like you said, like maybe even write it down and then just look at it and just accept whatever belief completely, like even just let yourself go with that belief, like okay, I believe in this is true, and then be okay with it and embrace it. And once you start embracing your negative beliefs and you're already aware of them, so you embrace them, they they become to lose their polarity in you. They become to the strength, because you're no longer feeding more of those beliefs. You're not resisting those beliefs. You're just letting them be. And once they come up and you keep doing that, they will still come up over time, depending on the strength and this how solid that belief is within you. You will come up. You will. It's not. This is not something that you can just straight up remove. It's like everything within you, every belief. It's like a cyclical, as a cyclical nature. So means that it always comes up from time to time, depending on sometimes with more or less frequency, but always it's always coming up. And so the trick is that you at first it comes up very often because it was very with a lot of strength. But once you start not giving any importance to it, not resisting, just accepting as it is, it will still come up, but it will start slowly losing its frequency and strength, and that's how you actually like completely let go of any belief that you have, is that this process of accepting and embracing. But first, of course, you need to become aware of those beliefs, because if they completely out of your awareness, well, for you it's like they don't exist. So that's the first step.
For sure. Actually, I want to add on to that real quick because I think that's really good what you highlighted. The other thing I want to say about that is it's almost like it's become our identity to think of those things and to have those triggers come up. And of course, being a part of our identity becomes a part of who we are as we grow up or go through life. And that becomes also so reinforced by the fact that when we have experiences in our lives, whether it's being abused by our father or grandfather or whoever, mother, whatever the case may be, or having a really nasty breakup with a girl because she cheated on us with like all your friends or whatever the case may be, it's different for everybody. But we attach women in that case to a trauma, and then the trauma is associated to words, and then those words are associated with thoughts, then to feelings, and then the thoughts and feelings start to have a feedback within our bodies, and that also has a chemical change and a chemical shift within our bodies as well. So people almost become addicted chemically to the experience of pain or to the experience of disappointment and guilt and shame and all these things. And so by doing what you had said, you're able to see it, but then you're starting to disassociate from that identity through a different set of practices. And in this case, doing the opposite of what it is that your body remembers, let alone what you believe. And although you're going to have those triggers anyway, like you had mentioned, you're not going to approach it in the same way that you did before, because now you're self-aware as to where that came from. And many times over, people are aware of why they feel the way that they feel, but they haven't really understood the process of disassociating it by forming a new identity. And in this case, instead of believing that all women are evil, it's being able to understand that what happened at that period in my life was not my fault. It was maybe my ex's fault, but in a way she was also going through her shit, just like I am as well. And as you understand that that trauma isn't yours to cling on to, it's yours to own because it is your pain, but it's not for you to cling on to. You can start to change your physiology. You can start to breathe out the process. You can start to change the way your structural framing is with your spine and your central nervous system. You can start to like really like let go of the trauma through practices like physical like activity and things like that. And then you start to associate what it is that you once believed with what you're starting to believe and understand and accept. You're starting to choose how you want to show up each and every day, emotionally and mentally. And the more you do it, And the more you reward yourself with a sense of feeling good, remembering what it means to feel good while associating with a new identity, the old identity, as you had mentioned, it starts to lose power or starts to lose consistency. And so as the cycle still continues to go, it's a weak wheel. While the new wheel that you're building, because you know what it means to feel good by doing something else and remembering how it feels like to feel good, and you associate that experience with new words,
Hmm.
and that starts to attract new people and all these new things, you start to become a new version of yourself, and that's
Yeah,
reinforcing identity.
I think the most important thing you said there is that people prefer their current miserable state because they know that's something they know,
Exactly.
and they don't know. Even if it was feeling better, they don't know it. So there is like this fear of the unknown that a lot of people have. So that it becomes quite funny when they like have these aspirations to be this person, but they're so identified with the person they currently are. So they are still feeling like the way they feel right now, and that influences how they think and how they act. And so even if they have this vision of who they want to be, but right now you're choosing to keep reinforcing the past every time whatever you do, you're reinforcing the past, but you're thinking about some greater future. But there's not really a greater future, but right now there is not only the future, there's only right now. So if you're not doing right now, if you're not starting to at least start going towards the direction, inclining yourself towards the direction, the person you want to be. And I think if you feel stuck or if you feel very heavy and you are like trying to think, how do I change this? Is that you understand that your feeling is influencing your thoughts, and so you're not gonna be able to think your way out of the situation you're in, because you will not even give you a chance to have empowering thoughts if you feel bad, because the thoughts you're having are correlated with the way you are feeling. So I think it's important for people to really understand that the way that you change is not by thinking about your life. It's more about putting in perspective, okay, how do I feel right now? How do I think? How do I act? And what is that aligned with? Like, what exactly, like what the way that I think and act right now and feel, where is that is gonna take me in like 1 year? If I keep going in exactly the same direction in a year, 2 years, where I'm gonna end up? Okay. And if you have a goal or if you have a vision that you want to end up somewhere else, or you want to be a better person, a bigger person, then you gotta look, okay, but how did that person thinks? How did that person feels? How did that person act? And if it's not the way I act right now, well, I have to, not saying that you can shift your behavior and everything in one day, but you have to start building a momentum to start acting in that way more often than not, every day, a little bit more, and people get lost in not understanding that's how you do have that change. It's not by reading books, it's not by collecting knowledge, is by changing your behavior, changing how you feel. Like something that really helped me to just get initial momentum was just running or doing exercise, because it kind of like boosts you, it makes you feel good. Like it gives you this, in the end, like when you push to yourself and you're sweating, like you just have this sense of like pride, and you sense like, okay, this feels good, right? And in that moment, I experienced that. It's like it gives me access to a thinking that when I was sitting still and feel like shit, I couldn't think like that. I couldn't have that positive outlook on life. I could just see despair and hopelessness, and you know, and yeah, and once you get going, I think that's the key. Is a lot of people like either expect too much they expect like this quantum leap that isn't real, like you cannot do that, or they just, yeah, they usually do that, like they want all these great things, but then they want to jump from where they at to the great thing like instantaneously, right? But that's not how transformation works. Is like if you go to the gym, it's a good example. Like you're not going to the gym, you're like chicken arms and like skinny, and you're just gonna lift like those guys that are buffed. They are there for 10 years doing like powerlifting, right? You're not gonna expect that you're gonna be able to do that. You're gonna lift the fucking small weights, and that's fine. And then you build up momentum, and eventually you find yourself doing the power lifts in a year or 2 years.
Exactly.
And that's exactly the same process, the steps that someone needs to go through if they really want to have that impact in their life. If they don't just want to keep lying to themselves and stay stuck.
Exactly. It's a process, and none of it is going to be easy. The beginning is always the scariest and first step. And quite honestly, most people are so accustomed to like quick things, quick fix, and just like getting it now, and short term success versus long term investments. And if I had to say what's the greatest thing you can ever invest in, it's definitely yourself, and not just in one day and one in 1 month. It's forever, forever investing in yourself. And whether it's going through the gym or getting real with your emotions or all the above, which in my perspective, that's the true way of holistic living, is being able to do it, living life like that. How can
Yeah,
I?
I think the holistic living really comes with what you said about big picture. Is that you're only able to be thinking that way or acting in a holistic way in your life if you think about the bigger picture for where you want to go. Because a lot of people, they feel like they're working on themselves, they feel like they're improving on themselves, but their definition of that is to get some short-term gratification, or get some quick sex, or get some quick fast money, and or get like a thing for abs that you just put there and can watch Netflix while the abs grow or something. Like that's what a lot of people resonate with when it comes to that. So that's their version of investing in themselves, you know. But really investing in yourself is to think like, okay, how do I want my life to look like? What's my purpose? Uh, like a lot of people are lost about purpose. I think that's a huge topic to talk about. Like most people's lives is about like what they're gonna do tomorrow. That's what their purpose is. Like they're not thinking like, okay, what I'm doing today or I'm gonna do tomorrow that affects me, my life in 2 years from now or 4 years from now. You know.
Yeah,
And until someone is not able to do that, have that ability to think long term, they're always gonna find themselves trying to look for quick fixes and never really just spinning their wheels. Really, like that's the way I see it. Just looking for quick fixes, but there is no quick fixes. Even if some of them might work in the short term, they always bite you in the ass in the
yeah,
long term. They always come back to fuck you up. That's how it works.
yeah. Unfortunately, but yeah, that's probably the last piece of advice I would ever give someone as well, is have a long-term investment mindset, have a business mindset. Because no, I think we may not always hit our goals, but I think people have become so addicted to not accomplishing a goal because they're not used to having that mindset of, I'm going to be doing this for the next 5 years of my life, because I know in the next 7 years of my life everything's going to be different. I won't be the same person, which scares me. I want to live in the same place, which maybe that's scary as well. But I want so much more from my life, and I realize who I am today, the way I think, the things I do, the things I believe in, all that is not cutting out to where I want to be. So I have to reinvent myself. And I think once people get into that headspace, they start to plan, they start to set goals, and they earnestly work towards it, even though they may not achieve it, they're going to see themselves, even within like 2 months after, how much they've really grown. That's where the real growth comes in.
Yeah, I think like the dopamine, people are addicted to dopamine, like to, you know, like like even when they do say that I want to pursue my better dating life, being able to attract the partners I want or build my own business, they say that, but they're like their mind is already like, okay, I'm gonna try it, but if it doesn't work in like whatever time they expect it to work, then I always have the safety net to fall back on. Like I always have like my life back there. I can go back to that if this doesn't work. But I always told this to people is that never will work. Like if you do want to commit, you can't have a net, a safe net. You cannot give yourself that option, because once you give yourself that option, your mind that is addicted with comfort and dopamine will always pick once things it's like when shit hits the fan and you hit adversity in your journey or wherever when you're trying to change it. That moment, your mind will be the perfect opportunity for your mind to tell you like how much better is back there with when you feel where you feel comfortable and everything is easy and nice and you can watch Netflix how much you like. It's gonna like those doubts, those infiltrating thoughts about like maybe this is not for me, maybe this is like gonna be the back door that your mind will get to kind of take you back to your comfort zone, to give yourself a reason that maybe this is not for you, maybe you should give up, maybe I should go back. And I see that a lot of people end up doing that. A lot of people don't understand what committing is.
Yeah.
Because committing or a decision, people don't understand the decision, because people think that the decision is something that you do. I mean, you can make a decision by doing nothing. Your decision was doing nothing. So there's no way you don't make a decision. You always make a decision.
Exactly.
Right? You always choose one. But people are like, oh no, but I want to choose like somewhere in the middle, like a maybe land. But that's not choosing. That's not making a decision, because you still have a lot of options open, right? You still have option to go back or other alternatives. That's a decision is when you pick one thing and you don't have anything else to go back to. That's when you really decided. And if you didn't, then that wasn't really that was either actually that was a decision. If you didn't, the decision was to actually not succeed because you don't really believe in yourself. That was the decision you made. Even if you try, you can tell yourself you tried, but actually in the back of your mind, you already knew that you were going to give up. If people think about that, they probably already knew that it wasn't going to work out because they decided that was the case. That's why they were so skeptical about trying, because their mind's already skeptical about trying because they already know that's not going to work, or they believe it's not going to work, and consciously or consciously, it doesn't matter really.
Sorry, I've been clearing my throat all call. I've been muting it. But
well, I'm not gonna comment on that.
But I also want to highlight based off of that as well. There's going to be points we could be in like the long-term investment of ourselves for like 5 years, and I've seen, especially leaders that I've worked with in their own organizations, that they've achieved whatever financial success they wanted, whatever the case is, and those old things always still show up. And sometimes the more successful they get, the louder that noise in their head gets, the louder the fear gets. And so I think when we straddle, like people who are like, I kind of want to find myself in the middle because I'm looking for a safe ground, they have one foot on the dock and one foot on the boat. And that is the perfect way of putting doubt or describing doubt. So it's a lot of self-doubt. And we are always going to find ourselves at some point on one side or the other, but we'll straddle between the two. And we have to bridge between the dance of getting on the boat and just letting go and just allowing faith to decide it and then having self-confidence. And sometimes we will step off the boat and get right back on the dock. And some of us will burn bridges so we don't have a dock to get back to. But
that's the best alternative. Just burn any bridge, any
Generally, yeah. If it comes to like a job, I personally wouldn't recommend that. I would say if you're trying to build your own business and you're working at a job you hate, develop the mindset of knowing that the job that you hate is actually paying for your business. So it's like your job's working for you in that sense. But if it
I think that the sense of purpose is what matters, because I did a lot of shitty jobs, but because I knew that that wasn't my final destination. Like a lot of people that I work with, that was just that's what they knew. Like that's the best they can get, right? But for me, it was just like I'm just passing by here. I'm just passing by, and that makes all the difference, because then it's not about really what I'm doing, whatever job, even if it's a shitty job. Is like I'm going towards my purpose. Even doing that shitty job, I'm in the direction that I want to go. I have a direction. I have a direction in life. I know exactly why I'm doing this, where I'm going. So I'm not just doing it for the sake of making some money or whatever. It's like there is a to it. And if you don't find the direction in your life, you'll just find yourself in the direction of most people.
Exactly.
Or yeah, or you will work, as a lot of people say, you will work for someone that has direction.
Yeah.
Basically.
And I'd rather build my dreams. I don't know about you. I mean, I know you'd rather build your dreams as well. And that I encourage anyone who's listening now, if they find themselves straddling in between fear and fate, and they're finding themselves in the middle, which is doubt, that's not gonna ever stop. So you might as well pursue your building someone else's dream.
Yeah, I think that's a big distinction. Is like when you pursue your dream, don't be so attached to the outcome, or to get the outcomes as soon as possible, or as you expect them to happen. Because a lot of times we have these expectations about how it should go, and then we have reality. And a lot of times they're very, very not aligned. So if you create too much of expectations of how fast it should be, or how it should happen, then you will find that it will probably be maybe more than you expected, and maybe you will find that like you feel disappointed or frustrated that it's not going as you thought. So the key is to trust the process, really believe that it's going to work, but not wait to see the results of it be working. It's like you can't like you should look for improvement. You should always trying to find like how can I be better, always analyzing yourself, but not like okay, where is my return on investment? I invested 3 weeks, nothing happened, or I went to the gym for 3 weeks and I barely noticed any difference in my body. What the fuck, right? But no, it's just like it takes time for your body to calibrate and to start showing the results.
Exactly.
But it takes longer than you think. And people are so addicted to the dopamine that if they don't get any dopamine when they're going for something bigger, if they don't get any dopamine in like 3 weeks or a month, then they just feel like, fuck, this is not worth. I'm not feeling, I'm not gaining any anything. It's at least what they thought was gaining, like getting some sense of importance or recognition. And I think that's a big thing, is that people are afraid to be a beginner at something. Like they don't want to come as a beginner in this thing or whatever they want to do. They want to appear as they already know a lot. But everyone that is great at something, they were once a beginner at it. Now they're excellent, but they had to be a beginner. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there where they are now. But people only look for the image, or they look like for the person that already arrived to this, like, to the top of the mountain, but they didn't see the amount of work and dedication and fucking commitment that person had to imply whatever he did to get there. Like it's if you knew like how much like the best whatever basketball players or football players like worked in the background where they're not in the field, you blow your mind. They put all their life into that. That's how much obsession they put into that. And most people, are just not willing to go to be obsessed by something, you know. But I think obsession can be unhealthy, but I think to an extent can be a very powerful thing for people, because a lot of people need that kind of kick in the ass to get started, you know, like a little bit of anger and kind of like a self-hate, kind of like what the fuck, you know, like what the fuck I've been doing, like kick yourself in the ass. That can be good as long as you don't go with that for too long, because that can be very toxic as well, because I experienced it. So I'm talking about from my experience,
Yeah.
because I went through that period of like, you fucking little bitch, go fucking do this, you know, like that kind of self-talk, which helped me. But then later I kept going on that, and that started really feeling bad. But then that's the moment, like, okay, this helped me so far, but now maybe there is another way to do things, and you have to be kind of not rigid, you know, gotta be fluid, go with the flow. What feels better.
For sure. Well said. Sorry, I
How
wasn't
long
sure.
we've been talking? What?
I was gonna say I wasn't sure if we went over time or not.
I don't even know, dude, to be honest. I don't know how much time passed, but like, can't see the time here. Do you see the time?
It says 10:58. It's
We
been,
started at 4, like an hour. Yeah, we did an hour.
yeah, it's been an hour.
Yeah, for me, like if you want to end now, that's probably too much than more than an hour. So an hour is already kind of long for most people. So
Yeah, I just got a schedule I'm trying to keep on top of right now.
yeah, no worries, man. That was a nice conversation.
It was good. I really liked it. It didn't really go into dating, but that's all right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the thing, is dating. It's just a manifestation of your internal. So whatever you experience in your dating life, it ends up being happening within you
For sure.
than your dating life.
I agree.
Cool, man. So yeah, I guess we can finish here. And yeah, we really thank you for coming up. Maybe we can do it. I don't know if you have a group. Maybe you can. You have like a Facebook group or right now, or have any like way for people that wanted to contact you or interested in knowing more about what you do.
So I don't have a group. I just have my social media accounts on Facebook and Instagram. I also have a website, quantumwing.com, which I'm not sure if you
Maybe
want.
you can share the link in like the comments below this live stream, so that people want to access it.
Cool.
They can. They can.
So that is.
I don't know that there's a guy right now in the call, in the live stream. So I don't know if the guy has any questions about what we spoke.
But I'm just gonna put my information.
Oh wait, no. You have to really go to the Facebook, because this is like
Oh, got it.
this is the private thing in the live stream thing, the restream.
Should I just Okay, so leave it in the
Inside the group, yeah. Really, where you go inside the group.
Okay,
Leave the link there, yeah.
I'll do that then.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll be doing that in a few minutes.
Yep. Well, hope the guys that were here and the guys that will watch this later, if they do get to this point, hope they enjoyed it, and that I think was pretty insightful. So I think it was good.
Yeah, I hope so. Hope they definitely get value out of it. It was definitely
Cool,
awesome.
man. That was awesome, yeah. So yeah, see you next time, yeah?
See you soon.
Peace.
Have a good one.